I am the election protection manager at OVRC, the Ohio Voter Rights Coalition, helping manage this program and make sure, we are, helping all voters for November of 2024. And I'll pass it over to Greer to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greer Ashbury, Senior Campaign Manager at All Voting is Local, and also really excited to see all the first timers here and excited to get into this material today. And I will pass it to CJ.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is CJ Wilson. I am the Southwest Ohio organizer with Common Cause Ohio. Glad to be here.
Awesome. So as you can see, this is the election protection poll monitor training for the November 2024 election. We will go ahead and get started. So our training goals, when you leave this presentation today, we hope that you will understand the structure of election protection, our roles and responsibilities, how to sign up for a shift, how to report and record any issues that you're seeing on the ground, some of the common voter questions that might come up, how to get your supplies from your regional leads, and then your next steps as you walk away from this training as we get ready for your shift. So this is the Ohio election protection structure. We work with the National Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law. We do nonpartisan work. So this is our program where we are poll monitoring outside of the polling locations, where we are interacting with voters, hearing how things went. If there's any problems, we help that in real time. And these are some of the organizations that are doing this. Election Protection is a national coalition of different states that are doing this work, but these are some of the people that are doing this nonpartisan work in Ohio. So before we get started here, and we do have some animations on these slides that are changing the graphics a little bit, but I just wanted to just kind of start by setting the groundwork of why this is so important and why this continues to be important. So as many people know, 1965 was the National Voting Rights Act, a huge piece of history, really strong voting advocates that were doing this work to really lay the foundation to where we are today. On the right side of the screen, you're going to see some of the headlines that we've seen in Ohio in the past few months. And this is why we do this work. There were people that fought for our rights to vote in 1965, and today we are still working on this, still trying to improve voting laws, still trying to advocate for voters, and to do whatever we can to really make sure that everyone has a right to vote. So as you can see, there's a lot going on here. The work that we do is so important so that we can make sure that voters are able to vote in every election. They're able to cast their ballots. They feel confident with these. And election protection is how we make that all happen. So these are the election protection hotline numbers. As I mentioned, we are a nonpartisan program. We poll monitor outside the polling locations. That's where we talk to voters. We interact with them. We hear what's going on. And this is our hotlines that we use as a resource. So we have different hotlines. We have English, Spanish, Arabic, and then the Asian languages ones that consist of multiple different Asian languages. This is where we call. You can text the hotline as well to ask questions, report anything you're seeing on the ground, just make known anything that we feel that our team should know about, especially on election day. But this is something that we really want to broadcast to folks. We want to make sure that everyone has the hotline information, because this is how we help voters. And if voters don't know about these hotlines on election day, it's not going to be useful to them to, we got to be able to help them. So this is what we want to try to center our work around. We have a bunch of different options for different communities, and this is what we really want to be sharing out ahead of election day so that we can really preemptively make sure that voters know this as a resource and can utilize this. So the roles and responsibilities of a poll monitor is, like we mentioned, to check and report for any issues that's going on the ground. This means checking in as soon as you get to the location, and it means reporting anything that you're seeing on the ground. This could be long lines, lack of signage outside the polling location. Is there traffic flow problems? Is there broken machines there? This is what you're going to be reporting up to us. We do this by assisting voters. So we are in the parking lot. Like I mentioned, we are outside of the polling locations. We try to be a friendly face in the parking lot. We get our information oftentimes by interacting with voters, asking them how their experience was voting. Was there any problems inside? We do whatever we can to assist and help voters. We answer their questions and we report any interactions that we're having up to our team so that we have that for the future. We review all the data that we get after every election, and we look for patterns and what we could do in the future to make sure that our information is better known and voters are better educated. Like I mentioned, the voters are customer. We are outside there, the location. We're trying to look for disruptions. We're looking for how to help voters. So oftentimes that happens when we're proactively talking to voters. By, this little picture here, you can see this is what we look like. We have our little purple t-shirts on. We can interact by voters by saying, "Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm an election protection volunteer. How was your voting experience? Is there anything I could do to help before you leave?" You're looking proactively for lines, for disruptions, anything that you're seeing. But when we interact with voters, we always want to make sure that they know that we are nonpartisan. We never tell a voter how to vote. We are simply there to just help them through that process and make sure they're not leaving without having casted their vote. So this is the general structure on a really simple terms of how we work in election protection. So obviously we have the voters at polling locations. They're the ones that are, voting, telling us their problems, asking us their questions. So as you see above that, we have our poll monitors. Our poll monitors call the hotline or text the hotline with anything going on. Voters can also text the hotline, call the hotline, let us know what's going on. But above those two things are our command center. Our command center is the people that are actually answering the phones for these voters, responding to the text messages that come in from voters. And that's really our hub that holds all that information so that, like I mentioned, we can look at that after the election, look for patterns, see what we're seeing, and notice trends that we can help in the future.
All right, so we will get into some voting information now. Stuff that you'll need to know while you are out there doing your shift, in case people ask. So early vote, we have shifts for the 26th and 27th and 2nd and 3rd. They will be at county boards of elections only, not all of the voting locations will be open. Like they will be on election day. So they will be Saturday 8 to 4 and Sunday 1 to 5. So things to remember, if you are doing these shifts, you will stay 100 feet from the entrance, and this will be clearly marked using flags or signs or something else. And this won't be as clearly marked, but you should stay 10 feet away from voters in line. If someone asks you to come over and help, you can cross that 10-foot threshold. But if you're just waiting around, you'll want to stay 10 feet away from voters in line. And this helps to ensure that folks aren't being electioneered and talked to all throughout the line. And so what you'll want to be looking at is looking for long lines, traffic flow, curbside voting, signage and access, and then electioneering. You'll be able to report these in the Airtable report that we will talk about later. Next slide. And so then on election day, there will be obviously more locations open than just the county boards of elections. The polls are open from 6:30 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. You'll want to make sure that they are open on time, that there's proper signage, and that folks aren't able to easily get confused with where they should be in line, where they should vote, etc. You'll want to note if there is police or sheriff presence on election day. We'll talk a bit more about this later. You aren't really supposed to do anything about it, just it's something that we'd like to know in order to keep it in mind in case sometimes voters could potentially be intimidated by police presence. So it's just something we like to keep tabs on. And then you will be roving between 2 to 4 locations on election day. And another example, something that you need to know is that any anyone in line by 7:30 p.m. can vote. Even if you are actually doing the ballot casting after 7:30 p.m., if you got in line at 7:30, you can still vote. Next slide. So like I mentioned before, police presence is fairly common at the polls. And we can expect that there will be an increase in police presence due to a lot of rhetoric surrounding this election. So we can definitely expect to see police, law enforcement, sheriff, whatever, at the polls. And like I said before, this can be intimidating for some workers, but election officials have a vested interest in keeping voters safe and keeping their staff safe. So oftentimes they will ask for the police to be on site. We want to track this. We want to make sure that everyone feels comfortable being in the space. So when you are doing a report, if there are police presence, we would like you to note it as such. So moving on to acceptable forms of ID, you can have an Ohio driver's license or state ID, a US passport or passport card, and you can have a US military ID card, an Ohio National Guard ID, and the US VA ID as well. If you have a non-citizen ID, even if you are a naturalized citizen, you can still vote, but you may have to present naturalization documents. Next slide. So here's the most common questions that surround ID. Does the address on your ID need to match with the address that you registered with? And the answer is no. So long as the ID is valid, it's not expired, as you see below, that's kind of the next big question. As long as the ID is valid, the address does not need to match where you are registered. And like I said before, you cannot use an unexpired ID or an expired ID, excuse me. Even if if it expired yesterday, it doesn't matter. You still cannot vote with it. And recently there was a change so that folks could put their Ohio state ID or driver's license on their iPhone. That is not considered an acceptable version of the ID. You have to have the physical copy of your ID to vote in person. So provisional ballots, they can be a bit complicated, but here's some of the basics. They're essentially just a double check on a voter's eligibility. If there is any sort of question surrounding a voter's eligibility to vote, they are not to be turned away, but instead they should cast a provisional ballot, which will later be verified by the Board of Elections and counted. So if you provided an acceptable proof of ID, you do not need to provide any additional info to the boards of elections after casting the ballot. There are some circumstances where people are forced to vote provisional while still providing a valid ID. So if that is the case, then you don't need to provide anything else to the Board of Elections. And for example, if you requested an absentee ballot but didn't end up using it, that ballot might still be floating around, and so they may ask you to vote provisional until all absentee ballots are cast, so they can ensure that you are not voting twice. If you did not bring your ID or the ID was not valid, you are to appear in person at the boards of elections to provide such proof within 4 business days following Election Day. And if you changed your name and didn't update your voter registration, or you changed your address and didn't update your voter registration to reflect that, you must provide proof in the form of a marriage document or a court order that indicates your current and prior names, or in the case of a change of address, you will submit your provisional ballot with a change of address form. So if a voter comes to you with a request about a provisional ballot or a question about a provisional ballot, definitely always call the hotline, because they can be confusing, and we want to know when folks are casting provisional ballots, and we want to make sure that folks know what the process is so that their vote is counted.
Jake, can I
So
jump in? Because there were a couple questions in the chat about provisional ballots and the curing process for them.
yeah,
So
sure.
folks were asking, does every single provisional ballot need to be cured? The answer is no. So there are certain situations like a change of address where you just have to fill out a change of address form, and you don't have to do anything to, you know, to cure your ballot after that time. And so we actually hear from boards that sometimes a lot of people show up at the Board of Elections in those 4 days thinking they had to do something else to cure their ballot, and they didn't. So that's one of the reasons that we do recommend voters call the hotline so they're clear on the next steps for whether they need to cure their ballot or not. And to the question from iPhone in the chat, yes, if you show up with an expired ID, you're going to vote a provisional ballot and then update that ID and bring it back to the Board of Elections within 4 days for it to count. And so let me move on to mail-in ballots, and we can continue to answer some of the questions in the chat about provisionals, but I will also say, if you leave this this presentation and you don't know every single thing about provisional ballots, that is okay. That's why we have the hotline here, and we've got lots of people to support you. So we're not expecting you to know the answer to every single scenario you might come across. The most important thing to know is you can call the hotline, or you can contact your regional lead if a voter asks you a question you don't know the answer to. And we're going to talk later in the presentation about the ways you can get in touch with those folks who are supporting you and some other resources. So for mail-in ballots, a couple things to know if you are doing early vote and election day. During early vote, if someone had requested a mail-in ballot but changes their mind and decides for whatever reason that they want to vote in person instead, they can go to the early vote center and vote a regular ballot. If they change their mind and go to vote in person on election day at their polling location, then they're going to use one of those provisional ballots. And that would be a case where the ballot does not need to be cured, because they'd be voting a provisional ballot just so the board could double check and make sure that they didn't also turn in a mail ballot. So there's nothing the voter has to do to cure that ballot, but it's going to be a provisional ballot so the board can double check their vote afterwards. The mail ballots cannot be returned to polling locations on election day. So if you see someone showing up with their big fat ballot envelope, let them know this is not the place to return it. They have to return it to the Board of Elections. They have until 7:30 p.m. on election day to return it directly to the board itself, either to the drop box or the office. Election day is too late to mail a ballot back. So if someone shows up with their ballot on election day, the only thing they can do with it is take it directly to the Board of Elections. If someone is going to mail their ballot, it has to be postmarked by the day before the election, by November 4th. And then it also has to arrive in that 4-day window. It has to arrive within 4 days after election day. So that 4-day deadline is true for provisional ballots and mail-in ballots. And when we say cure, Linda, we're talking about going in and, providing your ID for your provisional ballot to make your vote count. Curing a ballot refers to fixing whatever was wrong to make sure that your vote gets counted. And next slide, we have a couple more unusual situations or new situations this year with our mail ballots. First of all, just want to note that you can track where your ballot is online at voteohio.gov or your county BOE's website. This will tell you, did they receive your request form? Have they mailed your ballot to you? Did they receive your ballot back? This is really helpful. This is how I realized my request form was lost in the mail, and my Board of Elections was not going to be mailing me an absentee ballot this year because they didn't get my request. So definitely recommend using this and referring voters to it. Next slide. Drop boxes. So this is something that you've probably seen in the news recently. We've had some changes just since voting has been underway. So drop boxes are available at every single Board of Elections on site. They're monitored 24/7. There's a bipartisan team of election staff that come and empty the drop boxes every day. And this is where you can return your ballot on election day until 7:30 p.m. Next slide. However, there is a change to the process if you are delivering someone else's ballot. So if you're returning your own ballot, you can return that ballot by mail, or you can go to the Board of Elections, use the drop box, drop it in there. However, if you're returning someone else's ballot, let's say, your spouse or your child's, you cannot use the drop box for it. You have to sign an attestation form at the Board of Elections saying who you are and what your relationship is to the voter. This is a pretty significant change in the operation of our drop boxes. It probably won't affect those of you doing election day poll monitoring that much, but at early vote, we really want you to keep an eye on what's going on with the drop box, because we're anticipating confusion, possibly lines from people waiting to get in to do their attestation form, traffic backup. Those are all kind of things that we want to know about that might be happening at the Board of Elections around the drop box. So just keep your eye on that. When you arrive at your shift, if you're in early vote, take note of where the drop box is, what's going on, is there a line, is there a drive-through option, etc. So you can let us know how this is playing out. This is one of those things that we are dealing with in real time. So your feedback on what's happening is really important for us now and for advocacy in the future around this law. And Elizabeth wrote, she wondered how they would know who's dropping it off in the drop box. That's a great question. That's one of the problems that we know the boards are dealing with. And so I will also say boards are implementing this rule kind of in various ways, depending on their capacity, their staff, where their drop box is located. So that's also why it's really helpful to have your eyes on the ground at different boards of elections, so we kind of know how they're dealing with it individually. Next slide. And electioneering, CJ mentioned this. We, again, as nonpartisan poll monitors, have to be outside of the 100-foot line from the entrance of the location. If a line of voters extends beyond that 100 feet, then we stay 10 feet or more away from the voters. And of course, that's true for us, and it's also true for all the other volunteers that are out there campaigning for an issue or a candidate. You'll see them outside of your locations, and that's where we tend to see some issues. They may kind of creep up a little bit past the line. They may get a little bit close to voters and start creating an environment that is uncomfortable, that feels a little bit more stressful for voters. And that's the type of thing that we want you to report. Report A if there's no signage at all about where the 100-foot line. We want to know about that, because we'll tell the Board of Elections to get some signage out there. And if there are campaign volunteers that are getting too close, we also want to know about that, so we can ask the board to send a staff member out and let them know that they should back up. As a poll monitor, if you feel comfortable, you can let them know, hey, actually, this is the line, and we all have to stand behind 100 feet. But if you don't feel comfortable doing that, you can just report it to us and we will take care of it. But this is pretty common. People are excited. They're passionate. And so they can kind of cross this line and not even realize it sometimes. So this is a good one to keep in mind. And then voter intimidation, this is one of the most serious things that we deal with, because we want to have fair, free elections where all voters feel comfortable making their voices heard. So voter intimidation, we take very seriously. If you see anything that that a voter tells you is making them feel unsafe, intimidated, uncomfortable, that's voter intimidation. If you see anything that you think maybe could be voter intimidation, that's also something that we want to pay attention to. If you just feel like, oh, if I was a voter, I think I'd feel a little weird in this situation, we want to know about that. So first of all, in these situations, remove yourself. You know, we're again not asking you to intervene in any situation, especially one where you feel unsafe or uncomfortable. So take yourself out of the situation. If you can, if it's appropriate, if you feel comfortable, document it, take pictures or videos of what's going on so that we have that evidence and we have a better sense of what's happening, and then report it. So you can report it by calling your regional lead. We will be giving you phone numbers of a person who is in your area that you can call and report problems like this, or you can call directly into the hotline, the 866-R-VOTE. And as Courtney described, we at the state staff level are monitoring the calls that come in on the hotline. So things like this that are important, we see and we're able to act on very quickly. We also have a peacekeeper team on standby who are there to de-escalate these types of situations. They are trained clergy and social workers who are out at polling locations at Early Vote Center, and they have been trained specifically in what to do at these polling locations if things get a little bit tense and a little bit heated. So when you call your regional lead or the hotline and say there's something going on that you think is making voters feel uncomfortable, we may then decide to send the peacekeepers out, or you could request them and they can come just take the temperature down. They're really good if things haven't quite crossed the line, maybe into voter intimidation, but you're thinking, this is starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable. People are getting a little bit, excited on the verge of aggressive about their candidates, and you think peacekeepers could help kind of bring the temperature down. So they're a really nice tool that we have, and they're all over the state of Ohio too, which is great. Some other situations just to be aware of, and I know we had some questions about specific situations, so I'm going to give you some examples here. Feel free to throw things in the chat that you have questions about or are curious about as well. So things that we want you to report. Extreme lines. This is a big one. This gets in the way of voters casting their ballot. We don't want anyone getting out of line because it's too long and they can't wait. So we want to know ASAP if there are extreme lines. If there are broken machines, and that's often a cause of long lines. There could be a scanner that's not working, a voting machine that's not working, and making voters having to use paper ballots or some other process that takes a little bit longer than a machine. We want to know that. They do have extra machines on site. A lot have generators. They all have paper ballot backup. So there is a solution to broken machines, and we can help make sure the board is implementing that solution ASAP. Inadequate signage. This is something that poll monitors are really helpful at spotting. We had a location in Cincinnati in the primary where poll monitors all day long kept telling us, voters are coming up to me, they're confused about where to get in. The entrance was kind of in the back of the polling location, and it was just hard to find. So in that situation, help the voter find the entrance and then report it to us. And we can ask the Board of Elections to put more signage out there, put the signage in a better location, and even consider changing that location in the future, which was what they did with this location in Cincinnati because it was very problematic. So we want to know about that. We want to know if there's a high use of provisional ballots. So if you see a bunch of voters coming out looking confused, asking you, what just happened there with that weird ballot I had to vote, or with a slip of paper receipt that shows that they voted a provisional ballot. If you talk to several voters in a row that have some sort of provisional experience, start reporting that to us so that we can look into it and make sure it's not some systemic issue. It could be a poll worker training issue where folks are getting a provisional that they don't need to. Or it could be, are there multiple people not showing up on the voter rolls? That's a sign that there could be a systemic issue in there that we want the board to look into. So that's a really big one. Poll workers giving out wrong information. CJ just taught us that the ID, the address on your photo ID does not need to match your voter registration address. This whole ID law is new. This is a lot of new stuff for poll workers to internalize. I wouldn't be surprised if we have poll workers who get confused and think that the address does need to match. And so if you have voters coming out and saying, hey, the poll worker told me this thing, you think that's incorrect, report that to us ASAP so we can get the board, again, reaching out to them and stopping the incorrect information from getting out to any more voters. Intimidating flyers, a police presence. We talked about voter intimidation. So anything that you think, this might be making voters feel a little bit weird, let us know, take pictures of it. Again, multiple voters reporting that they're not on the rolls, like I mentioned, could be a big systemic issue. Voters who don't speak English and are having issues, whether that's just accessing their ballot or if that's related to, people questioning their citizenship and making them feel uncomfortable for not speaking English. We want to know about that. And then basically your rule of thumb is anything that you think seems a little bit off. We would much rather that you over-report what's happening than under-report. We all day, Courtney, CJ, a bunch of other staff people, we are just monitoring these reports, monitoring calls into the hotline all day on election day, and we're acting on anything that looks like it needs our action. So if you report something that didn't need to be reported, that's fine. We'll read it and we'll move on. It doesn't cause a problem to over-report. So we love to hear, anything that you think seems a little bit off. And with that, I'll pass it to CJ to talk about the mechanisms for reporting this stuff.
All right. So we have a couple tools in our toolbox to help us remember all of this stuff. I know there were some questions about, it's a lot of information. How will we know all of this? These are some of the ways that you will. So firstly, we have our regional leads and materials. Then we have the link tree, which is just a website containing a bunch of relevant links, including to this very slideshow. So if there's something you want to bring up in the moment, you remember hearing about it, but don't exactly remember what it actually said, you can bring up this slideshow and you can go through the slides and see. There are the Airtable reports, which are how you communicate info about the polling place to us. And then there is the Protect the Vote portal for signing up for your shifts. So firstly, your regional leads. They will get you your materials. They'll remind you about your shift. They will communicate with you during your shift, and they can answer any questions that you have. They are kind of your first person to go get in contact with if you have questions, because they are the most local to you. They're the most on the ground. They'll be able to answer any questions that you have about something specific on the day or before the day. They're very experienced. They've seen it all, so they're definitely the best resource for you to go to. And from your regional lead, you will get materials. So as you can see in the picture there, there is the election protection shirt, which you'll be wearing during your shift along with the lanyard. The tote bag will help you carry anything that you need to, including those flyers you see with the hotline on there that you can give out to folks if you feel they should call the hotline. So this is here to clearly mark you as a volunteer who isn't with any campaign. It says clearly, I'm here to help. It gets folks to come over to you and ask questions and not be sort of intimidated or worried that they're going to speak to a partisan person. So then we have the link tree, which will be dropped in chat soon. I don't have it with me, but I'm sure someone will drop it in chat soon. This I would recommend you bookmark on your phone so that on the day of you can easily access it. There is also a QR code on the screen if you'd like to just scan that. Thank you, Courtney. If you'd like to just scan that, that'll pull it up on your phone and you can bookmark it from there. This has a bunch of different links, including the online digital reporting form to report any issues. It has the training slides, like I mentioned. It has a way for you to check voters' registrations right there. So just an easy link to it right there, so you don't have to go searching for it. Just a ton of things that'll help you out during your shift and make your job a whole lot easier. So then we have our Airtable reporting system. This is the way that those in the field get information to us in the command center. So you will you'll check in every single time you arrive at a new location the first time. So you'll be able to go down a list, and this will all be demonstrated very soon. You'll be able to go down a list and check off the elements that are there. And you'll be able to not check off any elements that are not there, so that we know if there might be any issues as soon as you arrive. When you assist someone with a voter question, we'd like you to report that as well, just so we can know what kind of questions folks are asking. If we're getting a lot of reports about a specific question or topic at a specific polling location, then we know that there might be something going wrong. And then if you yourself see something going wrong, there is the incident report, where you can report that something like a voter intimidation issue, for example, occurred. You can report that directly to us, even if no one points it out to you. There is a space for photo and video, if you'd like to attach that to give us a better picture of what's going on the ground.
Okay, thank you, CJ. So there's a lot of talk about the Airtable reporting form, a lot of talk about reporting incidents. So I'm actually going to walk you through what that actually looks like. So let me exit out of this presentation real quick. So yes, this is our Airtable reporting form. That was a screenshot on the last slide. It's exactly what it looks like. And most likely you're probably going to be pulling this up on your phone. It looks exactly the same, just a little bit more narrow. This is our Airtable check-in report. So basically, like we mentioned, the first thing that you're going to do is submit a checklist report. This is what you do when you get to your shift. This shows us that you've arrived at your shift. It's like you're clocking in essentially, and it allows us to know that you are on the ground. So I'm going to show you what a checklist report is. I'm going to walk you through it. Like I said, you can pull this up on your phone. You can follow along. You can also take a look at this once you leave, but this is what it's going to look like. So let's say that I'm signing in for my shift. I just got to the BOE and I want to let folks know I'm here. So I'm going to start by putting my name in. Most likely your name should already appear here. If by any chance it doesn't, you're going to click on the link that's at the top. It should come up in your phone, no problem. And you'll see it asks for your first name, last name, phone number, and email. That's all you have to do. And from there, you should get put right into our system. So back to the main form. Like I said, first put your name. That's going to be under volunteer name. Some of this stuff, as you can see, has a little red star next to it. So that means that you have to put that in there to submit the report. But I'm just going to kind of walk you through some of the prompts on here. The second thing in here, who's reporting this issue? Election protection volunteer. We are poll monitors, so we are volunteering. You're going to put what polling place you're at. So I'm in Cuyahoga County. So I'm going to put the Cuyahoga County Board of Elections. Let's say I'm poll monitoring this weekend. This is the first thing I'm going to do. You're going to click on polling place checklist submission. It's the very first one at the bottom. So, once you do this, you don't have to worry about it. You can only focus on the ones at the top. You're just going to get this out of the way as soon as you get there. You're going to click polling place checklist submission. As you can see, when I click on certain prompts, further prompts populate underneath it based on what I'm selecting. So when I click checklist submission, you'll see that the checklist items are underneath it. So these are the things that you're checking for when you get to the location for your checklist report. These are the things that we ask that you're looking for. Does that location have adequate parking? Does it have adequate signage? That's just like, are there signs outside that show that it's a polling location? Is it clear that folks know that this is where they go to vote? Is there signs for electioneering outside? Is there the flags or anything like that? Is there curbside voting, polling and signage? These are the things that you're looking for. Was it open on time? This one is not necessarily something you always need to put, but if you are checking in for the very first shift on election day at 6:30, this is going to be great. And if you're there for an early shift at a BOE, also good thing to keep in mind. I also just want to flag, like, you don't have to go into the location, see if everything is open in there. If you see that people are coming in and out of the location, we could assume that it seems to be open on time. Is there adequate signage, like I mentioned? Is there a poll worker there? This one is not super necessary, but we want to just make sure, like, does it seem to be flowing there? Are people voting? Are people coming in, coming out? Is there any sort of disability access? Is there signs that show where curbside voting is? Does it seem like there's, ADA accessible? And is there an 866 R vote sign placed invisible? I'm not sure if we've mentioned it thus far, but there has been a few pictures of our 866 R vote black yard signs. This is really great to have when you go to your shift. Your regional lead should be giving you one of these. And this is something that I either like to keep with me when I'm standing out there poll monitoring, or it's also good to have like towards the exit of the location. So, no one is actually leaving without seeing these signs and knowing that there's a poll monitor there to assist them. For this, honestly, for your check-in report, this is really all you need. If one of these is missing, so let's say there's no curbside polling and signage, you're not going to click that one when you're doing your checklist. You're going to leave that one out. And this would be a great place to put no clear sign for curbside voting. You could also take a picture of it, like CJ mentioned. You can take pictures, you can attach videos, but this is a great place to just kind of let us know what you're seeing on your checklist report. We're going to submit it. This actually will redirect me in just a minute back to the form, but that's the checklist report. So that's the very first thing that you do when you get there. Once you've done that, it's taken care of. We know that you're there. You don't have to worry about that anymore. So this is where it comes into play when Greer says that it's good to over-report than to under-report. We generally are asking you to report every interaction that you're having with a voter on the ground. This just helps us because if we see a question that comes up a ton, we'll be able to know that for the next election, and we can, do a little bit more voter education that's going to help mitigate stuff like that in the future. If we see that someone's coming up to us asking a lot of voter ID questions, we'll know that in the future so that we could help these things in the future. You're always going to put your name, election protection volunteer. You're always going to put your location. These are the most important things here. But I also wanted to just go over some of the other options here. So, did someone come up to you with a question? That is just an option on here. Did someone ask you any sort of question? Like I mentioned, there's drop-down options for each one of these. So let's say someone comes up to you with a question. You're going to want to click question, and there's different options on here. What was that question about? Was it in-person voting? Was it a question about misinformation? Did they ask you about absentee ballots or voting by mail? Is it about voter registration? Do they have questions about language access? Do they have questions about who you are as a poll monitor? Ballot curing, COVID safety, disability access. There's tons of different options on here. So just kind of play around with this before you actually get to your shift so you're comfortable knowing what all the options to submit are. Let's say someone has questions about absentee ballots. Let's say they didn't get their ballot and they want someone from our team to follow up. You can put that it was a question about absentee voting, and then you can add that person's name in. So let's say I'm talking to Greer, I'm adding her. You can add their address, you can add their city, zip code, phone number, your source on here. This just helps us so we can see, did you see this on social media? Did you see this by your friend that messaged you and let you know? Did you see this while you were at the polling location? You are the person at the polling place. You can add any notes in here. You can attach any files. But this is where you're gonna submit. So let's say 3 people come up to you with questions. You're gonna wanna submit 3 reports. If you're not submitting reports, we'd love for you to tell your regional lead, but this is really important for us and our data on the back end. I'm also just gonna talk about another option here. So let's say it's a question about voter registration. There's different options on here. This is where you're gonna see that voter ID thing. This is where you're gonna see if it was a question about voter registration. Let's say someone asks you, am I registered to vote? You're gonna wanna go to the link tree that you're gonna have bookmarked, and you're gonna wanna click on find my polling place or check my voter registration. That's where you can work with a voter one-on-one, and you can submit some of these things based on the interactions you're having. I also just want to flag one more thing. So let's say you're submitting an incident. You're gonna wanna click polling place because you're reporting something that's happening at that polling place. Let's say there's an issue with the voting machine or the scanner, check-in system. Okay, let's say someone comes out and they're like, I wasn't able to cast my vote. The ballot scanner was down in there. You're gonna wanna submit that to us by pressing polling place. You're gonna see the different options of what could have happened in that polling place. Was there poll worker misconduct? Is there electioneering happening? This is where you're gonna submit that. Was there a ballot shortage? You're gonna wanna really look at these options before you get to your polling shifts. Was there any issues on here? This is where you're gonna press that. Let's say that a voter left and was not able to cast their ballot. You can get their information, you could put it here. You can see this is optional though. This is really if we're gonna wanna follow up with a voter. Let's say a voter needs help and you want them to get assistance by one of our teams. Remember, you could always call the hotline, you could always text the hotline, but this is gonna be a great option for some other things. So let's say that the ballot scanners are down, the voting machine is down. That's something that's important for us to know so that we could send poll monitors to that location and make sure we can mitigate anyone that wants to leave. This would be a great time to say that this requires escalation. This is something that's important for our team to know immediately because we will want to deploy poll monitors there. You know, if there's long lines, this might also be something that you want to put as escalation because it's something where voters could potentially be leaving the location without casting their ballot. Anything like that, you're gonna wanna put requires escalation. I just wanna also keep in mind that there are probably situations like, let's say a voter comes, they're holding signs that are uncomfortable to voters, they're yelling. That's probably a time that you're gonna wanna call a regional lead instead of taking the time to sit there doing a report. So if you kind of understand like long lines, ballot scanners being down, those are things that require escalation on a report versus calling someone ASAP to make sure that we have folks that can get there. If you have any questions about this, please feel free to let us know. We also have office hours on Fridays that we'd love to help you any further, but I am gonna go back to the presentation. And if there's any questions, please feel free to continue putting them in the chat, and we will be happy to answer those. We also have time for more questions at the end. Okay. When should you submit an Airtable report during your shift? Anyone wants to take a moment, throw some stuff in the chat? First things first, the checklist report. That's the first thing you do when you get to your location. Other times you're submitting a report when you're answering voter questions, when you're reporting an incident on the ground. Those are the times you're always going to want to submit a report. Okay. And I just wanted to flag, we do have paper copies of the Airtable digital report. It's pretty close to being the same exact thing. As you can see, the very top there is a polling place checklist. And then the stuff in the tally sheet are little boxes that you can take notes on the things that you would be submitting on the report. So these are available in the link tree. It's possible that not every single one of our regional leads will have this for you, but if you want to print it out personally because you feel like it will be helpful, please do that. This is just really great for notes. And if you're not wanting to sit there and submit a report in real time, this is great to just write down something so that you can submit your Airtable report once you're done with the voter. So It would be great if you would submit the things that you're writing on this sheet to the Airtable report, so we don't have to do that. But if you are not able to, you're running out of time, you can always take a picture of it, send it to me. You have my email right there, or your regional lead, just so we do have that information. And yes, the Airtable report is the same as the field report. This is the one time that reporting, and this is your poll monitor report. Just want to make sure everyone always knows you do have the hotline as a resource as well. So what makes a successful shift? You arrive on time or early for your shift. You're there and you submit your polling place checklist. Those are the first two things to start a successful shift. Get to your location on time, submit that checklist report. Have a few supplies with you. As you saw, we do have that tote bag. Each one of our regional leads has those tote bags, so that's what you should be receiving your materials in. And a few other things that could be helpful is have your cell phone. That's how you contact us. So this is really important. It's also how you submit your online reports. So if you need a charger, if you need a battery pack, and that's going to be helpful to your shift, you should bring that, especially if you think your phone might die. You're going to bookmark the Ohio Poll Monitor link tree. So like I mentioned, like we've mentioned through this whole thing, that is really the best place, or the best thing to bookmark before your shift. We really, really encourage that you guys report that or bookmark this and take a look at it before your shift. This is going to be one of the best resources that has every single thing that we've talked about in this presentation and more. There's even more helpful resources in there. So we really recommend that you really get comfortable with that. We also ask that you please take pictures during your shift. You've seen a lot of great pictures throughout this presentation, and we would love to have pictures from such a big election this year and all the poll monitors that we have on the ground. I forgot to mention the checklist report is the best place to also send some pictures when you're checking into your report. If you want to take a selfie, take a picture like this where you get to your location and you're outside with your sign. This is a great place to take a picture as well. But we just love to see what's happening. We obviously get a lot of online reports, but we love to see the pictures to, bring the whole context together. And please remember, when you are poll monitoring, no campaign apparel, no issue apparel. We're completely nonpartisan. If you want to do another shift with a campaign, we love that. We love to hear that. Just make sure that you go take off that shirt, put on whatever else you're wearing, because we just cannot be campaigning while we're helping voters. Just wanted to answer a quick question in the chat. The paper shifting form is not necessary by any means. This is just a place to take notes. If you have a bunch of voters coming up and asking questions, it'd be great to just say, okay, help someone with a voter ID question. I gave someone the link to check their voter registration. This is not necessary if you can just keep track of it in your head, if you want to just submit reports as they come. This is simply to just be a resource in case you're moving at a slower pace. You want to take some information down before you sit down and actually submit a bunch of reports. Okay.
And so I'm going to get to the good part now. How do you actually sign up for your shift? And I want to say before you leave, I dropped a link in the chat to a quiz. In order to sign up for a shift, you have to complete that quiz. There's one for regular poll monitors, and there's a separate one for college student poll monitors. So make sure you're taking the right quiz. If you are not a college student, that means you're a regular poll monitor, a fabulous regular poll monitor. And if you're a college student, take the college one so we can get you to the right place, but just don't leave this training without that link. You'll also get it after the training as well. So to review, we have two types of shifts. We have early vote shifts at your Board of Elections. These are 3 hours long. Every single county in the state has shifts, so you can go to your county or an adjacent one and help out there. You stay at that same location the whole time, and they are live for signups after you take that quiz. For election day shifts, these are also 3 hours long, but they are roving. So we're asking you to move between 2 to 4 locations during your 3-hour shifts. So spend 30 to 45 minutes at each location, and that's so we can get eyes on as many locations as possible. We have prioritized these by need. There are locations available for sign up in Cuyahoga, Franklin, Hamilton, Summit, and Montgomery currently. And then the rest of the locations will be added by the end of this week. So you can sign up for the ones that are available to you. If all of those fill up before the end of the week, we will be adding more. So stay tuned for those as well. But just wanted to note the distinction between those two different signups. And now I'm going to show you what the website looks like on the next slide for sign up. So after you take the quiz, you will log back in to the same place that you registered for this training. Remember, you have to use the same email for the quiz as you use to log in. So keep an eye on that. If you use a different one, you won't see yourself there. So you'll sign into your home base. It'll look like this first picture, and you'll click find a shift. Then you'll be taken to a list of locations. You can filter by zip code. And you'll see all the options for your closest locations. What you see here is an early vote location. So there's just one location and there's a bunch of different shifts. When you're looking at election day, you'll see all of the locations grouped in your roving area together, and then the options to sign up for a shift below. So you'll just click this blue sign up for a shift at the place that you want to choose, and you'll get an automatic email that sends you the information for your shift as well. So just reiterating our methods of communication, phone calls are fabulous for very urgent issues. You can call the hotline, your regional lead, or even Courtney. We've given you her cell phone so you can get directly in touch with her. And you'll also get your list, your regional lead contact information, which is in the link tree, and you'll get it in the follow-up email as well. Next slide. Again, photos are important to show us what's going on if there's a problem, and to show us your beautiful face out there doing your poll monitoring so we can celebrate you. So you can include those in your Airtable reports or in a message to your regional lead. Next slide. So now we're gonna put the quiz in the chat so you can fill that out. For those of you who have to leave because it's 1 o'clock, we will see you later. And once you take the quiz, you'll be able to sign up. And if anybody has any technical issues getting that quiz working or the shift sign up, you can get in touch with me. I'm going to put my email in the chat right now. And so I am happy to help you figure out that sign up system. So I think we're going to take the quiz. If you can stick around, we are going to open some breakout rooms in case you want to ask some more questions. We will be here as long as you need us to answer your questions, but you can also take the quiz, sign up for the shift, and look out for the follow-up emails from us.
Yes, we are wrapping up pretty soon. I'm opening up 3 different breakout rooms right now. If you are a college student, you should see one that says college students. If you are in Central Ohio, Columbus, I'm honestly just gonna say like middle of Ohio, please go to the central one. And if you are in Southern Ohio, Cincinnati, Athens, anywhere in that bottom half, you're gonna go to Southern Ohio. If you are anywhere in the northern part of the state, let's say Cleveland, Summit County, Toledo, you're gonna stay right here. We're just gonna take that quiz. We're gonna answer some questions on a little bit smaller of a level, but we are gonna wrap up pretty soon. You should see the 3 different breakout rooms in you should most likely, if you click on you like move your cursor and you see the little Zoom bar, you're gonna see the little 3 dots that say more. You're gonna click on breakout rooms and you should see a little window, just a little small window that has the 3 different options. You're going to see college students, Central Ohio with our regional lead, Elizabeth, and then you're going to see Southern Ohio where CJ is going to go. If you are Toledo, Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, Lorain, any of these northern counties, you're going to stay right here. But yeah, I'm here to help y'all. I am the regional lead for Cuyahoga County. So I'm here to answer any questions, but as we've mentioned in this training a few times, you do need to take the quiz before you can sign up for a shift. So it's not supposed to be tricky. We covered everything in this. If you have any questions, please let me know, but it does give you the correct answer if you happen to put a wrong one. But this is the first step in signing up for a shift, whether it be an early vote or on election day. We do need you to submit this. Right after you take this, you will soon after be able to sign up for shifts. I will say there is sometimes like a tiny little bit of delay in between completing your quiz because there's something on the back end that will, register that, and then it will allow you to sign up for shifts. Once you've taken the quiz, we do all this work in the portal. So the next time you get into the portal, you should be able to find the link or the screen. Let's see, that Greer had brought up here earlier, where, let's see. Once you've attended a training, you find your training, you attended your training, and there will be a time pretty soon after this training that the back end will register that you submitted your quiz, and then you will now have this window open that says shift sign up. So from there, you'll put in your zip code, like everything that Greer mentioned, but we just need you to take the quiz. That'll register on the back end, and then we will get you actually signed up for a shift. And like we've mentioned a few times, we don't have shifts yet for election day. The polling locations for election day just got verified by the Secretary of State on Tuesday. So we are just in the process of narrowing down those locations, figuring out the ones that have the most in and out traffic, and whatnot. Did someone in here have a question? Deborah, I think maybe she was in here. I did just get a notification.
I do.
Yes, please.
What link do I click on for the quiz?
Are you able to see the Zoom chat?
Yeah, yes.
So right above the message, the last message, it says regular PM, regular poll monitor. And then
Right.
there's a link. So right there, that link will take you into the quiz.
Okay. Regular PM forms, GLE, click on that.
Yes.
All right, got it.
Yep. And PM just means poll monitor.
Oh, okay.
And then we say regular, it's just poll monitor, but we have college students. So
Okay.
there's a separate college student quiz, which is why we have the so there are well, actually, we might have actually loaded a few polling locations in. So if you see anything for election day, we just wanted to add a few in, but the majority of election day shifts are not available yet. So if you took this training and you were hoping for election day shifts, please bear with us a few more days just because we just had those locations confirmed yesterday. So we didn't want to go ahead and add anything if we didn't know what polling locations would actually be confirmed as locations for November. There's been a bunch of different polling location closures and everything over the past few months. So we will be adding shifts either by tomorrow, hopefully, or on Monday. Can you try copying the link of the quiz if you're struggling to use it? Can you just copy the link and use the browser that you usually use? Okay, cool. And I will say that if you are able to remember it, you do need to use the email that you signed up with to use on the quiz, just so we keep on the back end, we know who you are, who your account is, and we're not like, just so it doesn't get confused, essentially. Are there any other questions? How to do nonpartisan for? Yes, I'll answer more questions in a second, but just the last one in the chat. You are only required to be a nonpartisan poll monitor during the shift that you signed up for. So let's say you sign up for a shift on election day from 6:30 to 9:30, whatever the shift time will be. you could, as soon as your shift's over, you could go to your car, take your pole monitor shirt off, put something else on and start holding lit for an issue or a candidate, and that's totally fine. We just ask that while you're on our shift time, you're not campaigning or doing anything for another issue or anything like that. But as soon as your shift's over, you are free to do whatever you want. And I am gonna send a message. We're gonna close the breakout rooms in a minute. We do have more time at the end for any other questions. Any other questions about signing up for a shift, the quiz? Anything else?
This is, I just took the quiz and my question is then how do I know, will I get an email or will there be some kind of notification to sign up then?
I don't believe there's going to be an email. When Greer comes back, I'm gonna ask her because she does have a better sense of like what that turnover time is, but it should be just using that same exact link to log in.
Okay,
Um,
okay.
let me see if I can, it's like the, let me grab this actually. So you're pretty much only using one link to sign into the portal if you have an account already, which you all do as someone who is signed up for a training. So when you click on the link, it's just like needs a little bit of time for it to like recognize and now understand that you have taken the quiz, just like the technology on the back. But this link eventually, and when I say eventually, I mean like within the next hour of the training being over, you should be able to click on that link and it should populate with this right here where it says process. You've already confirmed your info, you've already found a training, you are currently attending the training. The quiz happens and then you sign up for your shift. There just might be like I said, a little bit of lag, but I'll ask Greer as well. Okay, I'm gonna close the breakout rooms. Beach, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, but what's your question? When you try to access the quiz, did you try copying the link and putting it into the browser that you're using currently? I don't think anyone else is having that problem.
I did not try that. Let me do it.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Hi,
just gonna-
this is Virginia. I'm having a terrible time. My regular computer just sort of died, and so I'm trying to do
Oh.
this on my phone. Is there a link I can get to when I can get back to the computer once? I mean, this is all going to be over by the time I figure this out, to take the quiz. What do I do?
Yes. Yes. Hold on 1 second. So, let me grab that right here. So the poll monitor link tree is gonna be truly like the holy grail for all election protection stuff. So I'm gonna put this in the chat one more time. I know it might be a little bit difficult as you're on your phone, but we will
Yeah,
be-
I don't even know where to find chat on my phone. I just found a button that said push to speak.
I totally get that. So we have a link tree. We showed this one a little bit earlier in the slides, but our link tree it's really, really great. This is why we recommend it so much when you're gonna poll monitor to have this.
Mhm.
We're gonna send an email out later this afternoon that will have all the information from this training. But just so you know, the link tree, it's like Linktree/Ohio Poll Monitor. It has truly a list of all the different things. The first one being the online reporting form. You know what, actually, let me pull out of this. I think we are welcoming back a bunch of people from the breakout rooms, but this is, if you're able to see this is the link tree. Purple, like
Right.
shirts. The first thing being the online reporting form. A little bit farther down here, you'll see poll monitor training quiz.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, so I've got to get to that, all right.
The second thing in here is the poll monitor shift sign up. So this should bring you into the shifting sign up.
Okay, so if I can get to that and go to the quiz first, and then it'll allow me to get to the sign up.
Yes, exactly. And Greer,
Okay.
screw back on here. Yes, so there's been a lot of people asking how soon the turnover time has been for folks to actually sign up for their shift after taking the quiz.
It should be immediate, but I'm going to do like a double check upload after this training is over. So if you don't see it right now, you'll see it for sure, like within 30 minutes when I do that.
Yes. And that is going to be like I said, you can just click that link in the link tree, but it's the link I put in the chat that says like protect the vote, users, login. That being said, I'm just going to flag. We do have, let me see. Okay, there's not a specific slide for it, but a few other things before we wrap up, and then I'll stop sharing my slides and then we can answer any more questions. Is going to be election protection doesn't stop at election day. I know we've all been very busy. I know we've all been doing a million things, but until I think it's November 20th, that's when all the counties have to certify their votes. So election protection doesn't stop until every single county in Ohio, all 88 counties have certified their votes for the election. That's like our last step with election protection for elections. If you are interested, and I really recommend doing this, if you are just, you have a little bit more energy after election day, we have a training November 7th at noon on Zoom. Just kind of shows you what we're looking for, how to report that to us. And this is so important because there are 88 counties in Ohio. We really need to make sure that every one of them certifies. And if anything happens by any chance, we have people on the ground that could go into those BOEs, let us know what's happening, report the information. However, I do want to just flag a few other things. Office hours are Friday at 1 p.m. So we, every single Friday since we've started trainings the second week of October, we do have our election protection team sitting on a Zoom from 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. every Friday, and we're here to answer any additional questions after you leave this training. If anything comes up in the next day or so after you get the follow-up, you play around with some of our tools. If something comes up, you have any questions, please feel free to join us. We will have a link for that in the follow-up that comes. And yeah, we haven't had a ton of people on there yet, but it's a really great tool for a little bit more one-on-one help.
So I have, before you leave, just have one question. I'm finishing up the quiz and I hope I'm on the right quiz. It said, ask me if I'm a college student.
You're on the right quiz. I just put that in case anybody mixed up and took that quiz
Oh,
and they
okay.
are a college
All right,
student.
just
Yeah.
making me nervous as a senior. I think I'm
No,
all good.
I'm glad you asked. Thank you.
Okay, I am done.
Yay.
Thank you guys so much.
Yes. Okay. That is the whole presentation. I know we have gone a little bit over an hour, but we really want to make sure that everyone's questions are answered and no one's leaving this confused or with any more questions. So I know we probably individually have answered a bunch in the little breakout rooms, but wanted to turn to see if if anyone has anything else that they are trying to understand before we leave. Can you walk through an example of how to, you know, I will say I would love to like share my screen and walk through it, but I'm most likely going to be doing this on my phone and I don't know how to share my screen on my phone. But what I would recommend is, and I'm really not going to be able to do this in real time, unfortunately, but what I would recommend is like, if you're on your iPhone, either text yourself the link, email yourself the link, whatever you can do. I know like if you have your email on your phone, you'll also be able to check your email when we send the follow-up. Click on that link. You're gonna get it to your messages. However you can get it on your phone. This is like gonna be the best way to do this. You could also like go to, I think it's like link.tree/OH poll monitor. That's gonna be a good resource too, just to search it. But let's say I texted myself, there's like in the app or in my messaging, I texted it to myself. I'm gonna click on it. And now that's the link tree on my phone. So if you can, if you have your email on your thing, if you could click on it, if you could search it, I think it's linktr.ee/Ohio poll monitor. That's the other thing. So I would either I'm gonna keep it in one of my tabs, because I know I'll be able to look at it, but you also like usually every phone, different provider has some sort of like add bookmark to this, but I'm just gonna keep it as one of my tabs. We can probably grab the link right now, but I think it would be a little bit more helpful if you just keep it, just check for the office hour link in the follow-up that will be coming in the next 2 hours or so. There's like a whole line on there that says if you need any additional assistance, please join this Zoom. It's just a straight Zoom link that will take you right into our Friday call. Yeah, so CJ put that in there. Like I said, if you click on that, it is going to just directly take you into Zoom, which we're already in a Zoom. So we will send it in the follow-up. It will be very clear in there. The slides are in the link tree. I'm telling y'all, the link tree has everything. We thought of it all. We thought of every resource that could be really helpful, and we put it in here. So yes, it is a little, you do have to read a lot of the lines. It is very, just the text on there, but really has everything: online reporting, shift sign up, all the quizzes, the slides, every resource that we have, we put it all in here. So this is when I say like, this is going to be so helpful to just review before your shift. Click on the reporting form, play around with some of the drop downs, play around with some of the resources on here, because if someone comes up to you and says like, can you help check my voter registration? You'll be able to just easily click on the resources. And where again to do the quiz, we have that in the link tree. I also grabbed the link right one more time.